This video will demonstrate use of the modify tools. They're up here on the ribbon. Now, a lot of times what you do is actually use the modify tools more than you use the draw tools. It's a very efficient way to draw and also accurate way to draw. I'll just do an example. Let's start. Let me create a rectangle here. So what I want to do is put some other rectangles inside of here. I don't want them to be exact size. I don't want them to be located correctly. So I could just draw some rectangles, but I don't know what size they are, and I don't know where they're located. That's not going to do it. I need to know exactly what size they are, exactly where they're located. The easiest way to do that is by using these existing lines that I have. Now I drew these as individual lines. If you drew it as a rectangle tool, you'll need to explode it. Let's use this offset tool. Again, it takes a little bit getting used to, but you're going to need to get good at it. So what it's going to do is take an existing line and offset it. So it says, this is where it's a little bit backwards, because typically people start clicking lines. The instructions here in the command line say specify the offset distance. In this case it's going to be 1 inch, so I'm going to type 1, and remember you have to hit enter to go to the next part of the command, because I could be waiting to enter some more information. Enter. So now it says select the object to offset, so let's click on this line. Now with a vertical line I have two options. I can offset it to the right or to the left. That's it. So basically just move your cursor, and you don't have to move your cursor 1 inch, but don't move it a millimeter because the software will be really confused. Move it over to the right. So I'm going to move my cursor to the right, and I'm going to hit enter. So I know that the space between there and there is exactly 1.000 inches. And let's do the same thing here. Take this bottom line, and you'll notice with the horizontal line my options for an offset are up or down, and I want to go up. So just move your cursor up, and again it doesn't matter how far you move it, but move it up enough that the software recognizes it. Don't try to do some super small distance, and click that. I also want to take this line, offset it down, this line, offset it over, and you can even take lines that you've offset and offset from them. Now, the good news is for this drawing everything is 1 inch. It's not going to happen that often. When you're done, then hit enter or hit the escape key. So I'll hit escape to finish that command. So everything here is exactly, all of those spaces are exactly 1 inch. So that's how you use that offset tool. You can also use it if you had a circle, for example. You could use the offset tool. Again, it's going to ask you for the distance. Now what happens is once you've entered a distance previously, for example I was using 1 before, you can see it in the brackets, it's now the default for this drawing is going to be 1 inch until I change it to something else. Now let's say I wanted it to be 1.25, and then hit enter. So now it knows what the distance is, and now it says select the object to offset. If I click on this circle, my two options are a bigger circle or a smaller circle. The difference is going to be 1.25 inches. So see, that's how the offset works. Don't use it that often for circles like that, but you certainly can do that. So anytime you have a line, offset, remember offset distance, let's make it 2 inches, hit enter. I can easily create a series of lines if that's what I'm after, and they're all exactly the same space. So it'd be rather difficult to generate those any other way. So that's a great tool. Get used to it. When you're learning these, how to use these tools, follow your command line. When you click on this icon, the first thing it says is specify a distance. It doesn't tell you to click anything. Okay. Let's see. So now let's look at the trim tool. So that's a super useful tool. It's the pair of scissors up here. You click on trim. What trim will do is it'll make a line shorter. Let me just draw two lines here. So what I want to do is reduce the length of this line. In order to use trim, you have to have a cutting edge. Imagine you were going to cut a piece of paper, but in order to cut it, you'd have to have a line to cut along. So think about it like that. So I want to eliminate this part of the line, but keep this part. If you use erase and click on that, the whole thing goes away. That's not what I want. I want to reduce the length. So click on trim. Now what it says is select object. What it should say, it is asking you to select an object, but what you have to choose first of all is the cutting edge. So where do I want to trim the line up to? So clicking on this isn't going to do me any good. What I want to do is take this line and remove it up to this line here. So that's my cutting edge. So click on that. Now it's still asking you to select objects, but it's asking you to select cutting edges. You see this note right here? It says select cutting edges. I only want that as a cutting edge, so I have to hit enter to get to the next part of the command, because I could continue selecting cutting edges. Hit enter. Now it says select the object to trim, so it should make more sense once you get to this point. The object to trim is this part of the line. Now you don't want to don't be trying to click on the very end or in any place along here. So click that line, hit enter, and that's what it did. It trimmed that off. And the nice thing is that line is gone. Right, you don't have no remnants of that. Right, so let's do that again. So I'll go to trim, select the cutting edge, so that'll be that line right there, hit enter. Now select the object to trim, hit enter again, and you're done. So that command it seems a little bit backwards, but that's the only way the software understands it. If you want to use the trim tool, you have to play along with it. Now let me show you what else that you can do, which actually makes the command a lot easier to use. Instead of just choosing individual lines, you can actually draw a window around existing lines. Let me put some more lines on here. Show you what I mean. So I'll go to the trim tool. Now instead of choosing individual cutting edges, I'm just going to draw a window. So remember, click here, don't hold the mouse down, move it down to here, click again. Now see how everything is selected. So now what I can do is hit enter, and it says select the object to trim. Don't forget to hit enter. And now I can just click on everything that I want to trim off. So that's way easier. So if you use that window tool, it's a quicker way to do it. Okay, one more time. Trim, draw a window around everything. You got to hit enter to move to the next part of the command, and then click on the lines that you want to trim away. If you mess up, just undo. It's no big deal. Okay, so that's the trim tool. Super handy. Again, you're going to use that a lot. Let's see, let me show you the underneath trim we have the extend tool. As you can imagine, extend is sort of the opposite of the trim tool. I don't really like that icon that much, but that's the way it works. So let's say, for example, let's erase that one. I want to create a box out of these lines. So if I go to the extend tool, and as you can imagine, this doesn't, if you just click on this line, nothing is going to happen, and you can click it all day long. It's not going to work. That's not the way this software works. Some CAD software will work that way. What you have to do first of all is choose the target. So for example, if I want to extend this line up to here, I have to choose the target line. Now it's still asking me because I can choose other targets. Let's hit enter to move to the next part of the command, and now it says select the object to extend. And that'll extend that line to there. It'll extend that line to there, and that's all I can do. Hit enter or escape to finish the command. Let's do it again here. Extend, I have to choose the target line, hit enter, and then choose the lines that I want to extend. Now, as you can imagine, there's a shortcut for that as well. To do extend, just draw a window around this, hit enter. Now everything is a target. So that's the easier way to use that if you have more than one line to extend. Now it's not going to do anything, like you can notice I can click on this all day long, nothing happens there because it doesn't make any sense. Hit enter to finish the command, and then if I wanted to trim those off, go back to trim, draw a window around everything, hit enter, and then choose the lines, the parts of the lines that I want to remove. So extend and trim, very, very useful tools. Now I'll quickly go over these. We don't need them right now, but let's also look at move. So if you want to move something, it says select the object. So let's say I want to move this rectangle. The easiest way is draw a window around it. Hit enter because I can continue choosing objects to move, and now it says specify the base point. So what you have to tell the software is the starting point. Where do you want to move it from? So my from point, let's make it that corner. And then it's going to ask me what's the second point. Where do you want it to go to? So let's say I wanted it to go to here. Click on that point, it'll move it to there. So you have to do the from and the to move something. So remember that there's an extra step. You don't just get to click where you want it to go. You have to tell it where the start is. And that allows you to move stuff very accurately. Again, we're trying for accuracy, so you don't want to randomly be moving stuff around the screen typically. To copy something, select the object, let's draw a window around there, hit enter to move to the next part of the command. Once again, it wants to know the base point. Where do you want to start? So let's see, let's start there, and then where do you want to go? Now because I have my ortho on, it wants me to make copies that are horizontal or vertical. If I don't want that, then I can turn ortho off and move them around somewhere. So then I would go to my 2 point. And you can notice you can make lots of copies. So if you have something, sometimes for example we'll draw a fastener and you don't want to redraw it a bunch of times, make copies of it. It's way, way easier. To rotate something, select the object, hit enter, now specify the base point, which was there, and then let me turn my ortho off. You can see I can rotate it, or I can specify an angle. Let's make it, for example, 60 degrees. So type in 60, oops, enter, and it rotated at 60 degrees. I think that's probably enough tools for us for right now. We've already been over erase. One thing I want to tell you about erase, you can use the erase tool. So if I wanted to erase that line, click on it, hit enter, it'll go away. The other thing you can do is use the delete key on your keyboard. So if you just choose a line and hit the delete key, it acts as erase. That's actually erase. That's a little bit quicker, quite honestly. Okay, so let's finish up what I started here. I'm going to get rid of that. For this particular drawing, I've got a lot of lines to trim away. I'm going to go to trim, draw a window around everything, and that makes everything a cutting edge. Don't forget to hit enter, and now click on the stuff that you want to remove. Now trim it's not the same as erase. It won't make something disappear entirely. It will only cut away pieces of an existing line up to a pre-selected edge. Enter, and there's my shape. And this is exact everything. If I put a dimension on that, you'll see everything is 1 inch. Exactly 1 inch. So that's what I'm shooting for. That's the beauty of using that offset tool. You can very, very quickly generate, especially if you have rectangular shapes, or you can even use it to generate construction lines, as you'll see as we get deeper into the drawings. One more thing I'll show you, doesn't necessarily fit on this drawing, but is how to do fillets. So a fillet would be a rounded off corner. A lot of times with something like a casting or a part that's molded, is you don't want to have really sharp corners, and those are called fillets. And here's the fillet tool. It looks like fillet, but it's fillet. So again, it'll round off an edge. If you click on that, now what you're going to have to do is, it says select the first object, is click on the 2 lines that you want to fillet. So if you click on those 2 lines, hit enter, nothing happened. And that's because the default radius on the fillet is 0. So a radius of 0 will not, if you had a circle with a radius of 0, it's not a circle. So you're going to have to set that. You have to set it the first time you use the fillet tool for each drawing. So in order to do that, let me hit escape and we'll start over. Go to fillet. Notice these different things here. Those are different commands you can do. And if you see the letters, like U would be undo, P would be polyline, R would be radius. Let's go to the radius. You can click that, or you can type in R. I usually, I'm going to hit escape and start over. I usually just hit R, enter, and now it says specify the fillet radius. And you can see the setting right now is 0. Let's make that fillet radius 0.75. You have to hit enter to move to the next part of the command because the software is waiting to see if you wanted to put more numbers in there. Hit enter. Now it says select the object. So now if you click on these two lines, it'll put a radius of 0.75 on those corners. If you want to repeat a command, now this is a command where this is really helpful, is you can use the space bar. So if I click the space bar, you see it goes right back to the fillet command. And the radius is going to be set at what I previously had it at, which is 0.75. So I can keep doing, again, space bar. I can do lots of fillets very quickly by space bar. If I need to change it, the radius, I'd go to R and turn it and put in a different value. Let me undo those. The other thing underneath here is a chamfer. Chamfer is when you have a cutoff corner that's like at an angle, right? And again, you're going to have to set a distance. So either click on that or type in D and enter. See, the distance is 0. So let's make that distance 0.5 and hit enter. And if it's a 45-degree angle, it's going to be 0.5 in the X direction and 0.5 in the Y. So I'll just go ahead and hit enter one more time. And now I can click on those two corners and it'll put a nice chamfer. Space bar, do the other ones. So that's the difference between a chamfer and a radius, but they're both kind of in that, they're in that modify toolbar, but chamfer is underneath radius. And we'll spend more time doing those on a lot of our drawings. Doesn't really fit this particular assignment. So that's a pretty good rundown of modify. There's a few other things in here, but I rarely, if ever, use those other tools.